Hello everyone, and welcome to my August reading wrap-up. All 7 books I read in August were for the NEWTs readathon, so this video is a wrap-up for that as well. 5 books were by a new-to-me author, and 2 were new-to-me books by authors I'd read before. 6 of the books had been on my own TBR shelves, and none were a reread. Regarding authors, all 7 books were written by a woman, 2 by an author of color, and none by a queer or Jewish author. Regarding main characters, all 7 books had at least one woman, 3 had at least one POC, 2 had at least one queer character, and none had a Jewish main character. The genre spread was 1 contemporary, 4 fantasy, and 2 historical. 1 was a graphic novel, and 2 were poetry collections. I DNF'd 1 book. My ratings were 2 5 stars, 2 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, 1 1.5 star, and 1 1 star. There were 2 NEWTs exam levels I didn't meet in my goal to become a curse breaker: Defense Against the Dark Arts E level and Charms A level. The first exam level I did meet was Ancient Runes A level. For this I read Magic Can Be Murder by Vivian Vande. This is a historical book where the main character and her mother are witches that have magic powers, and the main character, basically through a scrying session, witnesses a murder. The plot flowed, but it was very simplistic to the point that you could really see where the beats were coming. Like, she's about to get away from the scene, but oh no, she has a freak accident that keeps her there. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm definitely out of the age range that this book was intended for. Something that did bother me, though, was the hypocrisy through this book and its muddled messages regarding morality. The main character, Nola, does some very questionable things, but because she's the good character, she gets away with it, whereas bad characters doing questionable things are punished for it through the narrative. Something else that annoys me is that Nola and her mother run basically from place to place throughout their life to avoid being labeled as witches and then burned at the stake, essentially. That fear is very present throughout this book, but for some reason, in the interest of the romance plotline with a main character who works for the law, Nola completely comes clean at the end when she totally didn't need to him, and he, despite being someone who is very much an enforcer of the law, decides, oh, she's a witch, but I have romantic feelings for her after knowing her for less than 24 hours. I'm just going to ignore my entire morality that I've developed throughout my life. It was very painful. I gave it 1.5 stars. The next exam that I completed was E level for Ancient Runes. For this, I read A Natural History of Dragons by Brennan, and I really enjoyed it. It was very fun and had a lot of good points to make about women following their dreams and trying to get through in a male-dominated society that tells them they're only allowed to do A, B, and C in their life when some might want to do X, Y, and Z. At first, I wasn't sure that I was really enjoying the book that much. It was fun, but not really syncing with me, but then something happens in the end, and I was really emotionally attached to what happens, and I realized, you know what? I'm actually really enjoying this book to have that emotional impact, so I'm really looking forward to continuing the series. It's done in a memoir style by the main character, telling the story of her scientific discoveries and adventures in studying dragons in this world. And I think that was the perfect way to frame this narrative. It really adds a level to the storytelling to have her older self interject her thoughts and to be able to talk about her experiences and how they relate to later experiences that we haven't yet seen on the page. It was just a brilliant addition that really makes this story shine. If you like the quirky funness of Gail Carriger's books, I highly recommend this book. I gave it 4 stars. The next exam was O level for Ancient Runes. For this, I read Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This is a poetry collection. I was really highly anticipating this for a long time. Unfortunately, I couldn't even get through it. I DNF'd it. I could tell that the words meant a lot to the author, that she was coming from a place of personal experience. Fortunately, as a reader, there seemed to be a lot of gaps in what was actually on the page that would have given more context to the words that we were seeing, so I couldn't connect to it. It felt much more like a diary than something that was meant for other people to be reading. I appreciated the messages that she was trying to get through. I just didn't think it was that effective in its execution, especially with the poetry being very stream of consciousness, very little punctuation, if any, and that never works for me. I gave it 1 star. On the other side of the poetry coin, for the A level for Arithmancy, I read Thrall by Natasha Trethewey, which I gave 5 stars. Like her other volume, Native Guard, she just blew me away with the imagery that she evokes through her words and the themes that run throughout this collection. You think that she introduces a theme and then she doesn't talk about it anymore, but it'll come up later, woven into the other themes that she's introduced in just the most impactful way possible. One of the big themes that I really enjoyed in this collection was the imagery of looking back, either physically or just in your own past or in a culture's past, while also trying to move forward and not necessarily being held back by the history, but not forgetting it either as you move forward and try to improve. It was just brilliant, and I cannot recommend it enough. The next exam was the E-level for Arithmancy. For this, I read Aquicorn Cove by Katie O'Neill. I've read The Tea Dragon Society and Princess Ever After by Katie O'Neill and absolutely loved them. I didn't like Aquicorn Cove quite as much. It seemed very heavy-handed in the message that it was trying to tell. Not that that message is bad, preserving the ocean and being conscious of nature, but it did seem a little bit heavy-handed and for a younger audience, whereas her other books were for a wider age range. Overall, I did enjoy it. The imagery is gorgeous and really cute with the little aquicorn creatures. I gave it 4 stars. The next exam I finished was O-level for Arithmancy. For this I read And I Darken by Kiersten White. This is a historical novel taking place during the 1400s, alternate history with Vlad Dracul's 2 children. I thought that the book and its characters were unique as far as at least things that I've read before. There were 2 moments that were clearly stolen from Disney's Mulan movie. The whole shooting a cannon into the mountain to trigger an avalanche that covers an army, and men dressing up as women in order to infiltrate a palace. That didn't sit so well with me, but otherwise I think that the narratives and stories that the author is weaving are pretty complex and interesting, especially for Lada and trying to grasp and maintain power as a woman, and I really enjoy the way that the author weaves that theme in with other side characters and how they have taken advantage of whatever positions they could get in order to take power as much as they can. I like that contrast and exploration throughout the book. Overall, I gave it 3.5 stars. And the last exam that I completed was the A-level for Defense Against the Dark Arts. For this, I read Circe by Madeline Miller. I was skeptical going in because of all the hype, and I was worried I wouldn't enjoy it as much, especially since I have a good background in classical studies, so I was definitely curious to see where the author went with Circe. I haven't read other Madeline Miller books, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, through the first maybe 3/4 of the book or so, I wasn't that enamored with it, but it was good. But by the end, and as I was going back through some of my favorite passages after I finished it, I realized this is the perfect book for an English class to go through and look at the themes and motifs that are being used, because they are woven in so brilliantly and very smartly. In fact, certain chapters seem to have certain themes to be the focus of that particular chapter, like rocks, and how Odysseus is like a rock, and how Circe is like a rock, and that's just a very brief summary that doesn't make it sound good, but the way that it was done in the book was brilliant. I thought the world was lush and the characters were multidimensional, and the way those themes were woven throughout was really what made it for me. I read this book in audio, and Perdita Weeks could not have been more perfectly chosen to narrate Circe's character. I gave this book 5 stars. And that's everything that I read in August and for the NEWTs readathon. Let me know down in the comments if you read any of these books and what your thoughts on them are, or if you participated in the NEWTs readathon. Thanks for joining me.